Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Shukran, Safiya. I'm really very happy to see you again. Okay, so I think our speakers are here. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope we can make this session quick and stick to the time. I know we are just before lunchtime. Let me introduce myself. My name is Saeed Al-Dhahri, Dr. Saeed Al-Dhahri. I'm the director for the Center of Future Studies at the University of Dubai. I'm also president of the Robotics and Automation Society in the UAE. We have quite a good number of speakers with us this afternoon. This session is going to be about knowledge cities, the ultimate power trio of governments, academia, and industry at the Knowledge Summit. So let me introduce our speakers here. We have Mr. Ali Al-Hashmi. Ali just transitioned from Ministry of Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology to Emirates School Establishment. Ali is a strategy advisor to the Strategy and Management Affairs and Emirates School Establishments. And with us is Professor Mariette Westerman, Vice Chancellor of New York University, Abu Dhabi. Also, just recently announced last night that Professor Mariette is going to be the director for Guggenheim Foundation and a museum around the world. Congratulations, Mariette, for the sport. Actually, the first woman to be a director for Guggenheim Foundation and the museum. So please congratulate her. Yes. And we have with us as well Faisal Amir Malik. Faisal is the Chief Technical Officer, Huawei Enterprise Business Group, Middle East. Okay, so we're going to talk about important topics here, the pivotal role of governments in catalyzing innovation, promoting economic growth, and advancing society, and the essential role of academia, what role academia can play as a knowledge hub within knowledge cities. And of course, the industry role in applying knowledge for city advancement. And what collaboration needs to be among this trio to really make this partnership more effective, bringing both the government, academia, and industry. So with all that, I will give the chance to my colleague, Ali, to present. He has a couple of slides. And then we'll go to other speakers, and then we'll open the floor for the Q&A. And if we have some time, maybe we can take some questions from the audience. Yes, Ali.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Saeed, for the introduction, and hopefully we'll make this session as short as possible. I was weary about informing everybody that this is before lunch, but now that you know that lunch is coming, hopefully you have the patience to listen and learn a few things on an empty stomach. Just to begin, I like frameworks. I'm a frameworks kind of person. I have a missing, maybe, part of my brain when it comes to orientation. I don't know how I lived before Google Maps. Everything needs a framework, and it simplifies communications to an extent, even communicating with others and unifying what do I mean by things, perspective-wise. So that's why my slides, just 3 slides, they're all frameworks. It's a way to kind of communicate things and the ideas that I'm going to talk about. Usually, people ask us about what research and development is. Research and development and innovation, or technology is quite an aspect of it. And we answer in different ways, depending on the audience. But one answer I like, because it's quite simplified, especially before lunch, is when it comes to science and technology, the knowledge, there's 2 parts of it. There's the creation part, or the generation of this knowledge, and there's also the utilization of it. They go hand in hand. It's sort of a yin and yang. You can't have one without the other. So if you generate knowledge, but there's no utilization, it's going to be a waste, or just leave the country, leave the place where that knowledge is being generated. And if there is utilization, but not enough generation of that knowledge, then that utilization will be just buying from outside. So both go hand in hand. But this is one of my favorite, actually, frameworks. Kind of shows the spectrum of research and development and innovation. The way that we discuss it in our policy office is there is research, there is development, there is commercialization. It's more or less a loose description of each stage, but as you see, it's different in terms of the risk, in terms of the performance, in terms of the funds at every stage. In the beginning, traditionally, for example, in research and development, it's done by academia, funded usually by government, and it's an institutional funding where the university allocates that fund accordingly. There are many methods in terms of funding these research, whether it's through projects or programs. As it moves to the end, where the research goes to a stage where it can be utilized, can be applied, it have impact on society, that's when we go to commercialization, general application, and beyond. Now, the message here for this session is the powerhouse trio of academia, government, and the private sector. But I wish to add one more part, which is community. Community and society plays a major role, and this is the essence, actually, of the fifth industrial revolution. It's centered around society, and most predominantly, it's human-centered. So society also plays a role in all of this. Now, as you see, we've got the higher education playing a role in incentivizing research, and we've got the private sector. But there is something in the middle. Usually, it's called the valley of death, where the research reaches a certain point, but kind of to move to the next stages, that bridge is missing. So they call it the valley of death. In the top of this framework, you see these numbers. This is a very helpful framework to kind of denote the level of research that is being done in a university or a research performer. So it's adapted from engineering, space engineering basically, so the technology readiness from 1, meaning it's still basic research, whereas 9, it's ready to commercialize and scale and manufacture or industrialize. It applies to most sciences or fields. Some fields might not lend well to it, but it works well for technology, engineering, and also healthcare. The next framework is actually something that started in 2017. So Her Excellency Sara Al-Amiri was instated as the Minister of State for Science, Advanced Sciences. And she embarked on the great work and the endeavor to work on the science and technology ecosystem in the UAE. So one of the things that were noticed is that we needed a language, standards to communicate what research and development means to unify. And what best, other than something that is internationally recognized, like the United Nations or the OECD in terms of standards and how to communicate. We thought of adopting a language that is being socialized and unified. It was issued in 2019 as a policy, the National Research and Development Governance Policy. It's a simplified form or a framework to be able to speak about research and development as an ecosystem. As you can see, there are 3 levels. Level 1 at the top, we need somebody to set priorities and set policies on an ecosystem level. Level 2 is the setting of the programs for research and the funding of these research programs on the various spectrum that we've shown. And at the bottom, the actual executors. One of the essential needs or gaps to cover is in the middle. We need more institutions that set up programs, that manage these programs and perform this funding for these programs. It's not enough to have a fund without the program management aspect of it, which needs to be strengthened in the UAE. So the next point that I want to make, since we're talking about funding and money, we issued also a guide, the National Guide for Collecting and Reporting R&D expenditure in government, to lead by example. We are following the Frascati manual in terms of reporting these expenditures within the federal government and also other governments who follow the guide. And this is just a depiction of how it looks like. So in terms of expenditure, our splitting is by higher education, separately government, separately, and we've got the private sector represented by business enterprise, and we've got also a classification for private nonprofit. All of these feed into the GERD, or the gross expenditure on research and development. This is one of the top indicators of any country. When you see a country saying that we spend 1 or 2 or 3% from our GDP on research and development, it's calculated using this number. So it's quite an indicator. It reaches a certain plateau where it no longer have that much of an effect. But in our case, we need much of it, and there's room and opportunity for improvement. So I just wanted actually to take this opportunity to speak about these 3 frameworks. Hopefully, it helps to understand what research and development is. And I invite you to visit the website of the Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology, which has been given the mandate for research and development, which is led directly by Her Excellency Sara Al-Amiri, who is the Minister of State for Public Education and Advanced Technology, at moyat.gov.ae. You will find the guide, you'll find information about research and development and how to contact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali. I think this is really, interesting in terms of what the Ministry of Advanced Technology, what the Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology has came up with in terms of frameworks and guidelines. And I really look into this expenditure guide that you guys have developed to assess how much the country is spending on R&D. And hopefully, maybe, I think if we started the cycle, since this guide has been, launched, I guess, last year, maybe in the next 2 years, we want to see, our spending in terms of R&D. I think this is one of the benchmarks or one of the KPIs, which really, give a kind of insight into what universities, output in terms of research and development. We'll move to our next speaker, Professor Marriott Westerman. You want to, give your perspective into how this how this interplay between government, academia, and industry, drives future of cities.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saeed. And I think we just had a wonderful example, as Ali presented to us, these 3 very powerful frameworks for how to think about the relationship between universities and knowledge cities from a government perspective, as well as an industry one. I encourage Dr. Saeed to interrupt me when I go too long. I have 4 grown children and 2,200 students, and I'm really used to being interrupted, so it's fine. So knowledge cities, I think it is wonderful to think about that topic, because I believe firmly that certainly since the 19th century, and to some degree before, cities have benefited tremendously from having universities right inside their environments. And I think that universities have benefited from being in cities and being considered real drivers of knowledge economies and knowledge societies. So let me say a few things historically and what's happening today, especially at my university, NYU Abu Dhabi. So many governments around the world are very aware about the connection between cities and universities. And there is a great government leader from the past, a statesman named Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Daniel Patrick Moynihan was a senator for the state of New York. He was the US ambassador to the United Nations several times in the 60s and 70s. He was the ambassador to India. He was a real government leader for many years. He's no longer alive, but he was a magnificent man. And he was a denizen of New York City. And in the 1970s, when he was made for a while the ambassador to India for the United States, and he was arrived and he gave his credentials to the president and the prime minister, he was asked, "We love your city, Ambassador Moynihan. How did New York City become so great, and how can we replicate the New York City miracle?" And he said, "All you have to do is found a university and wait 200 years. Wait 200 years. And that made sense, because Columbia University and later also New York University had become these driving entities of the city. He was, of course, being a little bit, made a little bit of a joke there, because, of course, today we cannot wait. to make the most of our knowledge economies and societies by building a university so slowly. But the truth is that New York benefited tremendously from the existence of not 2, but by now some 10 universities in its metropolitan area. And I think that is because universities, if you look at their history, they are fundamentally associated with the exchange of knowledge, transmission of knowledge through the generations, but also exchange between researchers, and that knowledge is also brought into society and into industry in different ways. And that has so long been true for universities and cities. It's often done in informal ways. There are informal forms of knowledge exchange in cities. We all know that. The coffee shop, the maker space, the traditional guild structures of the Middle Ages. If you think about cities from the Renaissance, like Florence, or Bologna, or Venice, they all had academies, early versions of our universities. If you think about Paris, the University of Paris is very old, and it really grew in lockstep with what the monarchy and then later the Republic tried to do for Paris and France. London, it has these very strong universities that are tied to the development of the city, especially in the 19th century. University College London, King's College, and so forth. And of course, my own home city of New York, when I'm not in Abu Dhabi, and Berlin. Some of the greatest universities of the 19th century were developed in those cities. Today, in the 21st century, we've seen magnificent university developments in Beijing, in Shanghai, in the 20th century and 21st century, and of course, in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi. And there is a reason governments launch these initiatives. Even when the universities are private, they benefit from the public support of the municipalities that will grant them land, that will grant them space to build dormitories or labs, that will make it a little bit easier for them to operate without full corporate taxes, for example. It is extremely important that non-profit universities be given tax breaks and incentives to come and also to develop real estate, actually places to live, as we do at NYU Abu Dhabi. And that is because what makes that knowledge exchange so efficient in and around universities is the density of cities. There are plenty of universities that were created over time in forests, in deserts, in all sorts of places. But at the pace of knowledge exchange that we need in the 20th and 21st century, you could see more and more universities really going urban and dense. Think about Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley could not exist without the presence of 2 great universities, Stanford University, first and foremost perhaps, but also the University of California at Berkeley, across the bay. And the same is true for New York. New York City in the last 10 years has become a total tech hub. It never was. But Mayor Bloomberg invested in it, attracted universities, Cornell among others, invested in NYU and Columbia University to develop all sorts of tech capacities, and the training of young people who could work for these companies. So today we have Meta, Google, Amazon, all the tech giants now have a footprint, a very big footprint, right in downtown New York, a stone's throw from NYU. One of the greatest leaders in AI, Yann LeCun, you've probably heard his name. Yann LeCun has been a professor at NYU for 20 years. 50% of his time he spends at Meta. And we as a university allow that. We make it possible, and Meta, vice versa, allows it. Universities, in other words, are talent magnets. They attract young people. NYU today is probably the most popular undergraduate university, not just in Abu Dhabi, although it is, but also in terms of how many people, the applications we get and how many people we can admit. The same is true in New York for all of the United States. And that we get 120,000 applications a year, NYU now does, for about 7,000 spots. You can imagine how popular it is. And that is partly because we're a great university, but especially because we're in New York, this great, diverse, cosmopolitan place, just as diverse in terms of nationalities represented as the UAE. And NYU Abu Dhabi, for that same reason, is here because we both develop local talent, Almost 25% of our students is Emirati, so that's higher than the percentage in the country, actually. But the other 75% are intentionally from all over the world, from 6 continents and 125 countries. 6 continents, and I bet you that Antarctica is coming. I bet we'll see that yet. And those students that we attract and develop don't just come here for 4 years, they also study abroad with us. Many of them from other countries, more than 50%, want to stay here and work here. And this is where the government really needs to help us. Because of course, when students don't have a lot of money when they graduate, but many of them don't have a job immediately. Actually, I shouldn't say that because 96% of our students have a job or a great graduate school placement, but mostly jobs within 5 months of graduating. But they sometimes need a little bit of time to be able to stay, have health insurance, be able to live and have a visa to be able to be there as a freelancer while they look for jobs. And I have seen quite a few of our most talented students go back to their home countries or home continents or other countries that make it easier for them to work there or find a job. And so I think the UAE has been doing a good job making it easier for freelancers to be here. You need freelancers in creative cities, we know that. But I hope that they will keep thinking about what they can do for the many, many students who come to study at MO Abu Dhabi, but also the University of Dubai. UAE University has many international students. The universities in Sharjah do. And that is an incredible resource for this fast developing knowledge, society, and economy. I'm not going to speak about research now, that maybe will come up in the questions, but I could make the very same argument actually about research that I just made about developing youthful talent that any dynamic society needs.
Thank you, Professor Marriott. I think you highlighted very important points for universities to be within cities, and this attracts the industry, comes in a cluster around university. You gave very good examples of cities around the world where renaissance in terms of science and in terms of knowledge flourished, from Florence all the way to Paris and New York, of course, London. And this is what I think we try to also embrace here in the UAE and in Dubai in particular, with the establishment of the academic city in Dubai, which hosts, I think, more than dozens of universities. And we have, of course, the industry clusters, here and there around the city, whether you're talking about Dubai Internet City or, Dubai media cities. So whenever there are universities, that build the knowledge, that shares the knowledge in terms of within the society and within the industry, we see cities, flourished. So thank you for your remark. And now we'll move to my colleague here, Mr. Faisal, to speak from your perspective, Faisal. Maybe you have a presentation, maybe you will present how the industry, what's the industry role in terms of having knowledge cities and promoting the knowledge cities with the role the industry plays in this regard.
Sure, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. It's my honor and pleasure to be here in front of this wonderful audience and this esteemed panel. I would shed some light quickly on what is an industry player like Huawei, our response. What are the steps we usually take to participate in this trio of the public sector, government, academia, and the industry itself. So once we talk about, as we see today, one of the main key topic around the whole event today is fifth industrial revolution. That is, we are entering the intelligent world. So first 2-3 slides quickly, I will define that how do we see this fifth industrial revolution. As you can see on my screen, moving from agriculture economy, industrial economy, digital economy, now all of us, I think, we can safely say that we are officially into fifth industrial revolution, where it is all about data, AI, data-driven economies, artificial intelligence becoming a general purpose technology in all walks of life. On the other hand, I'll skip a couple of slides, allow me to do that, just keeping in time. On the other hand, when we look at the governments, if we look at the cities, the governments, what kind of steps they have to take advantage of this fifth industrial revolution. So I just summarized here 3 key steps. Number 1 is the information infrastructure built up. And as you can see here, a lot of initiatives around computing, new technology infrastructure, and building new data centers, cloud computing, a lot of things around AI, building smart cities. Second is converged infrastructure, where I and Mr. Ali, we were discussing how about we can merge technology and education sector together, how we can merge technology and health sector together. We saw in COVID-19 big gaps there, how we can merge technology and governance together. And last but not the least is the innovation infrastructure. That involves academia, that involves human capital development. And when we talk about technologies like AI, cloud computing, big data, applications, all of them are the foundation technologies. They are not the end result. They are the enablers. So somewhere we get confused that maybe our goal is AI. Our goal is not AI. AI and all these technologies, computing, connectivity, they will take us from point A to point B, from point B to point C. So having said that, where is the gap? If you ask me, coming from industry, I'll just give you one example. I was talking to one of the CEOs. I look after the region, so one of the regional CEOs, I was with him at GITEX, and I was standing with him, and I said, how are you seeing business in 2023 and 2024? He says, I don't care much about business, because there is so much business in the market, we would be growing anyways. So I said, what is your biggest challenge? He said, I don't have people to meet my business goals. That means I don't have young talent. I don't have enough engineers. I don't have enough students getting graduated, trained students coming out from universities to pump into this system so we can drive the business. That means there is a delta there. That means there is a gap there. So we as an industry player also, we also do see a gap in terms of where we, academia, and the government all have to come together and build that kind of ecosystem which can fuel the industry and the countries and the cities to move forward. So to do that, we have taken a lot of initiatives. So as Huawei, we are taking a lot of steps in terms of education. What is our role in terms of as an industry player, and how we can work with the government, how we can work with the public sector, how we can work with the students and universities to bridge this gap to meet the challenges. So to make it easy, I have defined these initiatives as 7 pillars of talent development which Huawei is already doing. For example, in UAE, we designed the initiative of training 10,000 students or talents in 3 years. We designed it like 3 to 4 years ago, that every year we would take steps, and at the end of 3 years, we would meet the milestone of 10,000 trained talent or students or government officials, whoever we can. And to do that, we took these steps. So first was developing ICT academies, then running a train the trainer program. Then we have a Seeds of the Future program where we invest in fresh graduates coming out of universities. Then we have ICT competition where we have a platform where the young graduates coming out of universities, they have their startups, and we fund those startups. We hold competitions among them. I was one of the judges, and even UNDP was part of this program. And we actually fund up to $100,000, $50,000, or $30,000 to the 1, 2, 3 top startups coming out of this program. And then we have we have certifications which are free or with very minimal fee. We have set up certification academies with the universities, because what we have realized that once students come out, to bring them nearer to the industry, we need to certify them, we need to encourage them to undergo these professional certification programs. And once they certify, the top ones join our organizations, and sometimes they even go to our competitors. They go to other similar organizations which are working in the industry, and they also go to government and non-government organizations. Then we hold a lot of tech talks where we, as Huawei, we invite industry, we invite students, we invite academia, and I myself and my other colleagues, we participate these tech talks so we can go and let them know what exactly is happening in the industry when we talk about smart cities, when we talk about AI, when we talk about cloud computing, when we talk about big data. And then we also have very comprehensive internship programs where we we pick and choose top talents from the universities who are graduating. We bring them to Huawei and we train them and we make them part of Huawei as our employees, and a lot of them become senior managers and flourish and become even to the director level. We have these programs running successfully since last almost 10 years. So this is just very briefly about these programs where we as an industry player are contributing through real programs and initiatives to bridge the gap where we can bring, I would say that we can build a more cohesive future as we walk into the fifth industrial revolution. And as you can see, the pictures at the bottom, these are from our real programs, real competitions, of talents from UAE universities and other universities in the region actually visiting our R&D centers in China and around the world and learning there and then coming back and becoming part of Huawei and becoming part of the industry. So the next slides, I'll not go through them because those are just the details of these same programs, but just 1 second each of these slides that how these programs are real, on ground, and are being executed. So this is Seeds of the Future program, where a lot of Emirati students and students from Emirati universities visited us. This is about Huawei academies, and as you can see, 100+ academies working in the region and 10+ working in UAE with the universities. So these are real academies, real investment from Huawei, and more than 1,500 running across the world. And then a lot of courses available online and on ground through these academies to the students about all the most modern technologies on which Huawei is working, cutting-edge technologies, and students get aware of exactly what we learn inside Huawei as professionals. They are trained on the same ground, so there is no gap of what they are learning and what we are being trained on inside the organization to go into the market. And yeah, okay. And then we also have an innovation center, Huawei Open Lab. So in Huawei Open Lab, we work with our customers, but we also encourage startups to come and join us. So in Huawei Open Lab, we have got the top companies working with Huawei, building the ecosystem, as Mr. Ali, you were talking about building the ecosystem. So we have our platform called Open Lab. But the good thing in this Open Lab is a big or the biggest organization, IT or ICT organization in the Middle East, is part of this ecosystem, or a 1 person or 2 student startup is also part of this, this Open Lab. And then if the startup and their offering is good for the customers, we make it part of our offering and we go to the customers and offer it as a Huawei offer. So we give them the platform to market themselves. And last slide, I will go there. I'll skip these slides. So why Huawei can do that? Why Huawei can do that is because we are one organization that stand distinctive when it comes to our R&D investment. And as you can see, even in 2022, our R&D investment was more than $22 billion. So all the programs and initiatives I am talking about in earlier slides are being executed in real, on ground through these R&D, through this R&D investment. And in the last 10 years, this has been more than $130 billion R&D investment. So these are massive programs where we are trying to play our role as an industry player. And you're all most welcome to know more about these programs through our websites, or you can, I think, add me as well on LinkedIn, and we can connect later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faisal. I think you have hit the cornerstone of this. Indeed, talent development is the corner of all the, talent development within cities, within countries. And I've seen programs that Huawei have conducted. I know from the University of Dubai, we are a very good strategic partner with Huawei, and we have implemented many of those programs that you have highlighted. So with all, now we're going to turn into the Q&A. And maybe if we have time, I'll try to give maybe a chance to the floor also to ask questions. But we've seen, Ali has spoken to the role of government in terms of policies, in terms of, putting guidelines and framework that incentivize, the collaboration and cooperation between the three trios. And of course, Professor Marriott has spoken about the role of universities as being a hub within cities, and Ali spoke about the role of industry. If I ask Ali, from your experience and from the work that you developed with the ministry, how you see this is going forward in terms of incentivizing the trio to come together with policies from the government. What do you think the role of the government should be in terms of pushing this forward and making this, partnership much more effective, much more effective?
Of course. So one of the principles that Her Excellency Sara Al-Amiri, the Minister of State for Public Education and Advanced Technology, emphasized as a principle is to build a government case, so to speak, similar to a business case. So government's intervention needs to be based on solid evidence base. I invite you, one of the highly cited papers, Legitimizing Research, Development, and Innovation Interventions by Government, I think. It's by Weber et al. And it's been used also for policy analysis in many of the OECD papers. It expands on the classical market failure framework to include other kinds of failure that the government must intervene. Given that, in light of this principle, the role of government should be within its remit, so that to give the most room for everybody to play in. One of the purposes of showing the framework, if you've seen the framework that is the triangle, on the top of it, what the government has done is in 2019 established a body to represent that top tier, which is issued by His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Rashid, the Prime Minister of the UAE, the establishment of the Emirates Research and Development Council. It's headed by His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who is also the Minister for Foreign Affairs. And it comprises of members from academia, from the business sector, from government, federal and local, to set the priorities and the policies on an ecosystem level for the country, which is something that has been needed. Right now they're working on these priorities to set, hopefully to be announced hopefully soon. I don't want to set a time.
I would like to see this going forward.
It's been an extensive exercise because it's including everybody as much as possible, including everybody from industry as well and all the government entities. That's one role to play. The other part, using another of the frameworks that I showed, where it shows a spectrum of the development research in the middle, that's an opportunity for government to play. So government has been traditionally funding universities and education. And commercialization, or the sectors, the private sector side is where the private sector comes and operates. But there is some opportunity in the middle for public research institutes. I'm reminded of an example where a research institute developed outcomes based on a problem given by industry, and they were funded by that industry. However, due to that research reaching a certain level, and it couldn't be translated to higher levels that the commercial entity was able to use, it just stopped there. So that bridge needs to be filled, and this is an important role that government can play in, which is starts by setting the priorities for the country, which is being worked on by the Emirates Research and Development Council.
Thank you, thank you. So I move to Professor Marriott. You know that maybe one area that academia play a bigger role in terms of driving innovation and technology transfer. how you see this is, going forward and within the context of knowledge cities? How important and how is this technology transfer and innovations coming from university to, to the industry, to the city, to benefit the city as a whole?
I love that question, Dr. Saeed, and we've already heard Mr. Ali speak to it a little bit just now. It is, apart from the talent magnets that I've described our universities to be, universities are, of course, hubs of research and innovation. And therefore, partnerships both with government in terms of developing policies, for example, nudging, behavioral economics to encourage good behavior on the road, in traffic, for example. We directly contribute this to government. But more obviously, for economies, of course, our technological labs, our science labs, our STEM labs in particular, are often of great interest to industry. Now, how does this really work? I think it's important to remember that knowledge creation is often of extremely long duration. The great example that we've all heard of recently is, of course, the important work on RNA technologies and RNA science that led to the development of the COVID-19 and other epidemiological vaccines. If that work hadn't been done in the 1980s and 1990s, when it was kind of a backwater of research, it was just sort of something that some of these genomicists, two of whom have just won the Nobel Prize, they were curious about it. They almost lost their jobs at one point. They weren't supported very much. And then lo and behold, it became more and more important. People were busy studying DNA and the coding of genetic information directly in DNA, because then you can think about drugs and so forth. But they'd forgotten the RNA, which gives you the messaging on how viruses and other things replicate, is critical to vaccines. If universities had not, of their own accord, sometimes with government grants, funded that work, we wouldn't have had them. But sometimes it's very hard for industry to say, how long are we going to wait for that? That's 40 years. It's a rare example, maybe. And so at the same time that you have to invest in basic research like that, in all technologies, you also, as a university leader and as an industry leader, you have to keep looking at what's happening in universities in terms of knowledge development that may come to intellectual property and convertible intellectual property that becomes actual products that can be taken to markets. You need to look at that all the time. And for this, for example, I can give a great example. What are going to cities need almost more even than data in the near future is water. We're all running out of potable water. And here the UAE has a great advantage in that it has had desalination for decades. But the desalination is extremely energy intensive, and it's a little bit bad for the environment still because of the byproducts. So one of our most advanced research centers is our water research center. And both government and industry are working with us because it is developing membranes for the kind of the process of desalination that turn out to take down the energy draw by more than 50%, 50. One of the largest energy draws in the country and in our cities is from the provision of water. That is the kind of situation where you really have to go fast. You can't wait 50 years. It has to be happen now. So I think that's a good example of the kind of partnerships we encourage and then develop further by having incubators of the kind that you described, and where we bring professors, young talent in our universities, students, and value creation funders together. So you need to work on all these different registers.
Great. So you highlighted very good examples, when, spoke about, vaccine development and maybe drugs development for COVID-19 and others. And I can't remember, if I remember correctly, the number of research that came out of the UAE universities combined with during this pandemic, COVID, it's about maybe 2-3 times the amount of research, before COVID. I think we are running out of time, but I'll ask one more question to Faisal. Faisal, you highlighted the good model between Huawei engagement with academia. How Huawei accomplished this? How Huawei fostered this relationship with academia? Did you approach the academic institutions where they approach you? What was the model, for this collaboration?
Thank you for this question. First of all, I think because we ourselves as a company, we understand the importance of innovation and R&D, and as Dr. said, that it has to be, it's coming out, and its value of coming out of universities, because we are a very R&D centric company ourselves, and that's why I showed you some numbers as well. So no matter what country we are working, we are rolling out massive networks for our customers. So the most, apart from the technology, the things we need the most is the talent.
Right.
Because Huawei is not a company which is just sending some boxes and equipment into a country and these towers are being rolled out, the networks are being rolled out. We need talent, we need people to run this show. So we take it very seriously. And so industry's advancement, having the right kind of talent available to us, and the industry is prime for us. So that's why within Huawei, we did not give this responsibility to only maybe a sales department or a general department.
Right.
There is a dedicated team who works with all tiers of the government, understanding first for example, if we are in UAE or Saudi or Oman or Qatar, any country in the region, for example, we understand what is the overall vision of the leadership, where they want to go in the next 5 years.
Okay.
What is their vision for the country's development, for human capital development. And then we connect with the academia, like you said, even for University of Dubai and other universities. And then
the question, did you approach them or they approach you? Because this has always been a question when it comes to collaboration between academia and industry. Do the academia go to the industry or the industry comes to the academia? This is always a question.
So so a very simple answer is that yes, first we go and tell them what we have to offer them. Like I introduced here, one purpose was to let the audience know that what are our programs, and everyone can maybe who has not benefited.
Right.
Somewhere in the audience may come to us and say, hey, we are a big university and we never heard about this program. And then a new collaboration starts. So that is how we do. We go to the universities and we very, very proactively let them know our programs, and then we take on from there.
Excellent, excellent. I'm aware of the time. Are we good on time here?
We're done.
Okay, so I'm really sorry. Maybe we don't have time for our esteemed guests to ask questions. We ran late and we came to this panel, but I would like really to thank our panelists, Ali Al-Hashmi, Professor Marriott, and Faisal for being, in this panel today, speaking about knowledge cities and the role. This has been always a question when it comes to the role between government, academia, and of course industry, and how we make this relationship and foster the collaboration. Thanks to our panelists and thanks to our guests as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Saeed Al-Dhaheri and distinguished panelists. Thank you so much.